needed, right? The only thing we succeeded in doing by keeping kids in school to get a college degree is we simply delayed by maybe 4 or 5 or 6 years when they enter the workforce. So those 5 or 6 years where they could have been earning money and developing skills on the job, instead they're developing no skills and they're racking up a huge debt. And so now they owe all this money that they wouldn't have owed had they not gone, but they're not getting educated. I mean, I don't have, the statistics to back me up, but I'm sure if anybody did the research, it would prove that I'm right. But I'm sure that if you took a high school graduate in 1950 or even 1900 or whatever, like somebody that went through the ninth grade, or not even high school is the 12th grade. I mean, I bet a junior high school graduate, I bet somebody that graduated eighth grade or ninth grade in 1950, I bet if you took that person and you gave them a basic test, mathematics, English, geography, history, whatever it was, you took a test and you tested those kids, those eighth or ninth graders, I bet the average score that you would get would be higher than today's college grads. That would be my bet, right? I bet we are educating people in college to a lower degree than we did in high school or junior high school. So they just stay in school longer, but they're not getting educated more. They're not learning anymore. They're just spending a lot of money, and they are enriching the colleges and the universities who have been benefiting from this. And, if you don't really believe me, I mean, I got some statistics about this. And, I looked at the price of Yale University because I was living in Connecticut. And I remember I even mentioned this in my book, but I did a YouTube video 10 years ago. And you can see it on YouTube, Peter Schiff, college tuition or government programs pushing up college. I recorded it in 2009 while I was running for Senate. And the impetus for the recording was I had done an interview on Face the State. And the topic of the GI Bill came up because, they were trying to show that government is good and government spending does a lot of good. And this guy was using an example of the GI Bill to say, hey, Peter, would you have been for that? Because, I was against big government, against government programs. And so he wants to know if I would have been against this popular program like the GI Bill. And so that's what prompted me to record this video a decade ago, was to kind of talk about how, even though I'm against government aid to education and I'm against student loans and all that government involvement, I'm against it because I'm in favor of students and education and against government and the universities and the colleges ripping off our kids. But at that time, I did the video and I mentioned that the tuition at Yale University at that time was $35,000 a year. Well, I checked Yale University for the most recent year, and it's now $50,000 per year. So in the 10 years since I recorded that podcast, we've had a 43% increase in the tuition at Yale University. So that's a pretty big increase in 10 years, 43%. But I had some statistics on Yale tuition going back, for a long time. And you can actually see what college was like before the government got involved in subsidizing it, before the government tried to make it more affordable, right? So in 1810, Yale tuition for a year was $33, right? That's it. That was for a year. 42 years later, in 1852, the tuition for 1 year at Yale was still $33 a year. So you had a 42-year period where they didn't raise the tuition 1 penny at Yale University. And of course, remember, back then, they didn't have anything. They didn't have typewriters. They didn't have carbon paper, right? They had no machines, right? This is your very basics. We have all this labor-saving devices now. We have all this technology. It should be cheaper to educate kids today than it was in 1810 when they were doing it, without any of these tools and labor-saving devices. But you had this 42-year period without any increase in the price. Now, to put $33 into perspective, because people's like, well, what's $33? I mean, how does that relate to the $50,000 that people are paying today? Well, in 1918, or 1810 rather, and 1852, the price of gold was $20 an ounce because it was fixed at $20 an ounce. So Yale University, for a year, you needed 1.2 ounces of gold. That was it. Well, gold today is $1,500 an ounce. How many ounces of gold do you need to buy 1 year of Yale? 33 ounces. So it was 1.2 ounces in 1810 through 1852, and now it's 33 ounces. What is that, like 27 times as expensive as it was back then? And there was no government help at all. There was no government aid. There were no student loans. There was nothing. Now, with all the government help trying to make college uh, cheap and affordable, it's 27 times the cost of what it was without the government helping at all.